There's a new report out from the FDA warning people about one of the single worst scams I've ever heard of. This is truly incredible. Quote, be wary of products being sold online that claim to treat or cure the Ebola virus. Some online supplements are claiming to help treat the deadly disease. That, ladies and gentlemen, has to be a new low for humanity. For those of you who don't know, of course, Ebola has a death rate between 50% and 90%. Woo, doggy. That's insane. That's super high. And there's no approved treatment for it yet. There's some experimental stuff, but the experimental stuff has not been approved, not been proven. So we're really just taking shots in the dark here thus far. But what a lot of people do is they're looking at the new Ebola outbreak, where over 1,000 people have died from it, by the way, and they're going, well, how can I capitalize off this and make a buck? Quote, according to a 2011 report, falsified drugs have flowed into more than 120 countries. We have a rampant problem with malaria medications, tuberculosis medications, and others, particularly in low and middle-income countries, and we know it's increasing. That was an FDA official who said that. Yeah, this is crazy, man. And what this tells you is this shows the dark side of humanity, right? I always talk about how humans are very bipolar and we're very schizophrenic. We could be like super brilliant and, super high-minded and intelligent and moral in many respects. And then on the other hand, we could be these insanely immoral, inhumane, vicious tribal creatures that are like, fuck it, if you're not part of my group, I'll make money off of you while you're dying from Ebola. But the other aspect to this story, which I think is fascinating and needs to be brought up, is, hey, libertarians, you're wrong. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that here we have a situation where if regulation was lax, there would be even more people pretending that certain drugs cure certain diseases. Meanwhile, they're handing out sugar pills all day long. In a marketplace that has no regulation, you're going to have predators preying on the weak. That's just the way it works, man. Now, what's the libertarian counter-argument to what I'm saying? What they'll say is, no, see, after a while, people will catch on, and then people won't frequent that business that makes these bullshit drugs, and then it'll go out of business and everything works out for the better. Yeah, but what's the downside of that? It takes a while. You need enough people to die thinking they're getting their cure for people to go, oh, yeah, okay, this doesn't work. If they ever catch on. But even if they do catch on, you want it to go for a few months or years. How many years is it acceptable to allow the fake Ebola stuff on the market before we say enough? No, the reality is this shit should be pulled immediately. There's no magical free market, right? There's no actual invisible hand that fixes everything perfectly when you get the government out of the way. Sometimes when the government is out of the way, there's fucking anarchy and people sell fake Ebola and tuberculosis medicine, and you need the government to say, hey, asshole, guess what? Now you're going to jail, okay? Now we're going to take you for everything you're worth because you did this incredible scam and you were hurting people. And keep in mind, man, this might be an extra nefarious one, but this is pretty rampant too. So another example is the supplement industry in the U.S. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some supplements that there's plenty of evidence for, and you can find them on the shelves of your Vitamin Shop or GNC or whatever. That's for sure. But most of the stuff in those stores, most of the supplements are total bullshit. Total bullshit. Now, why are they able to get away with selling snake oil, essentially? Because the companies lobbied for a loophole back, I believe it was in the 80s, and they exempted themselves from any FDA regulation. So if you'll notice, if you look on supplement containers, most of them say not FDA approved, or statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. Again, a few slip through the cracks that are actually pretty good for you, but most of the supplements they're total garbage. New York Times had a study that was released about a year ago where they found out that a lot of the, the gelatin capsules, and there's powder in the capsules that you get with different supplements, they say, oh, we actually tested the powder in like a lot of different supplements, and in virtually all cases, they were just lying about what's in the product. So they'll put something on the label, but in the actual capsule itself will be like fucking rice powder or soy or sugar or just shit that it's a placebo. They're selling you a placebo, but they're pretending it's going to cure your depression, and this is going to cure your this, and this is going to cure your that. So when you don't have the FDA involved, now contrast that with actual pharmaceuticals. Now, say what you want about maybe there's pharmaceutical overuse happening in the U.S., that's for sure. Maybe the pharmaceutical companies have too big of a grasp on the government, that's for sure. Not going to argue with you there, right? But still, there's better regulation of pharmaceuticals than there is of supplements, because pharmaceuticals, they can't even run a commercial without telling you the 9,412 side effects, because they're mandated by law, because the FDA makes them do it, right? So in that case, regulation is a good thing. And there's no libertarian argument on this front. I'm sorry. On this issue and on a lot of economic issues, they're just wrong.